Hey everyone, thank you all so much for tuning into my podcast, Sincere Emotions. I am your host, Joy Javelle. So today, for my finale, I have a very special guest on my show. You all do not know how much honor I am to have my special guest on my show. It's amazing. We're going to learn a lot today for this last episode, okay? All right, with that being said, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I would love to. Hello, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here. My name is Kimia Anderson, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right, Kimia. So those of you that do not know, we have been working together in a facility together. So I'll let her explain a little bit how the process works for those of you that are looking to get help or not sure what a therapist job is or what they do and how much they just help us in the process. So I'll let her explain that a little bit. So how long have you been a therapist?
So that's a good question. It's actually such an interesting process about how I became a therapist and what it takes to become a licensed therapist. And I don't think a lot of people know this unless you're going through the process or you have someone close to you that is also a therapist. So I graduated with my master's in clinical psychology in 2019. Awesome. And after while you're in school, you already have to practice. You become what they call a trainee. And you work part-time, usually for free, unfortunately, but not always. I think that's changing now, which is good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, but you have to work part-time. You have to get a certain number of hours, and this is all while you're being supervised. Before you get licensed, you have a supervisor who you go to once or twice a week and talk about your cases, make sure you're doing the right thing, you're not causing any harm, you're following all the ethical and legal rules. And your supervisor is someone who has already been licensed for multiple years, at least 2 years, and they go through a course to become a supervisor. And they're there to help you also learn the different theories that we have to do, the different techniques and interventions that we have to do. And so you do that when you're in school, and then you graduate, and then you continue. You have to gain 3,000 hours of supervised work, and that's it's a lot, and I got way over 3,000. I got up to like over 4,000 before I was licensed because it's broken down into certain sections, like certain types of hours you need: face-to-face, group, notes, trainings, family, children, couples. So I had to earn a lot of hours. I worked really hard for this. So I've been a therapist since at least 2019. So it's about 4 years now, working in treatment centers for the past 3 years.
Awesome. And now you all see why I'm so honored to have her a part of my podcast.
I'm one of Joey's biggest fans. I am constantly waiting for a new episode. I don't work one-on-one with Joey, but I've done groups with him and see him all the time. And, just try to be a support. He knows he can always come to me if there's any issues or anything, too.
Oh, yes. That I do know. Thank you so much for that. Now, so my next question I have for you is, how does the process work in regards to treatment centers, treatment centers, as far as how does that process work when you're working with different clients? I know you have to work with so many different clients, like there's always a change in clients. How does that process work for you? Is it a little stressful? Is it not stressful?
It depends on the day. It depends on the house. It depends on the client that I'm working with. I'm at that day. It's also very rewarding, of course. The challenge, I think the most challenging part, I would say the two most challenging parts. The first is having a client who isn't ready or doesn't want the help. Right. Because most of the time when you're coming into treatment, it's not always by your own will. I mean, I don't think anyone really wants to come to treatment, and no one comes to treatment on a winning streak. It's kind of the saying that we can all relate to, all the clients can relate to at least. So typically therapists don't know anything about the client who's coming in, and they don't get to choose either who's their client.
I was wondering that.
Similar to, as you know, clients don't get to choose their therapist.
Exactly, yes.
It's just kind of, here you go. Sometimes if you're lucky, you might be able to say, I prefer a male, I prefer a female.
Right.
And that might be an option, but not always, especially in the residential treatment centers where you're living there. There's only one therapist, one case manager on site. So that can make it a little bit more challenging. But so it's really luck of the draw for on both ends, right?
Right.
And it's challenging emotionally. It's emotionally tiring, and I always get asked the question, how do you separate all the stuff you're hearing, all this trauma, all this quote-unquote baggage from, like, yourself? Like, how do you just leave that all at the table or leave it at work, right? They always say, leave work at work.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But, yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily the case with me all the time. I've been really good, obviously, through the years of experience and education, that the work that we do to help the clients applies to our own life as well.
Right.
So like when I run a group, sometimes that's a topic that I need for myself. I need some self-discipline. I need some self-compassion. My thoughts are irrational lately. Right. We're human beings. I think people forget about that, or clients can sometimes forget that too. We're human beings with our own lives, with our own dramas and heartbreaks that happen that we have to kind of put on a face for when we come to work. But my coworkers always hear me say, even if it's a difficult client, that I'm like, oh, I love them. Because I've learned that because they're difficult, these behaviors are coming from somewhere, some pain inside of them. Exactly. And so I always have a lot of compassion. I'm someone who sees the potential in everybody. And that's good and bad. Good for my work. Right. Bad for my personal life. Yeah. I mean, it's good to see the potential, but it doesn't mean that someone's always going to live up to that. But I think it's good in the work process because a lot of clients feel hopeless, or they don't see any other way, or they don't know any other way. And
having way at one point.
Yeah. And just like having someone tell you, like, no, this is going to get better.
Yes.
Work, be open, be willing. It's not easy work, but it will get better. It'll be worth it.
Yes, it does.
This therapy, they always say, it gets worse before it gets better.
Yes,
you got to uncover all the ugliness.
I agree.
So it's taxing, but I love it. I forgot to mention, too, that other second part about difficult is working with insurance. Here at the treatment centers, insurance does not want to pay for clients to be here. They're like, oh, they're not in psychosis, they're good to go. They're fine. When, no, they really need a lot more help, and insurance just doesn't even know the client, see the client. They don't want to pay up. That's just how insurance is. So trying to advocate for time for the clients to be in treatment and stay in treatment is hard and annoying. And it seems like the clients who don't want to be here get the time. And the clients who want to be here get cut off. And it just drives us clinicians nuts. So, yeah.
That part I can honestly relate to. I know because I myself, I was just talking to the insurance company right before you came. So, yes, I agree. The insurance company, I wish they would understand how serious mental health is and how serious it takes us time. Mm-hmm. I hate that they tend to put a end date. It's like, how you going to put an end date on someone's healing? And then a lot of times you don't even know that your discharge date is coming up. You find out probably sometime that week.
Sometimes it's very last minute.
Yes. And they don't even realize, like, wow, you making them kick us out, and we're not even ready. And it's not you all's fault. Of course, insurance does tend to make those decisions a lot of times not knowing or acting like they haven't been through the process, which I do hate that part. I do agree with that. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing that too as well, that because a lot of times clients do forget that you all are human and that you all do go through things just as well as we do. I don't know why I always thought therapist is just the strongest person in the world. Like, y'all do not go through anything at all. I always thought that, so I was like, and now I understand. I always tell people now, too, most definitely for those of you that do not have one, it is very, very, very important for you to have a therapist. Now, when I say that, would you agree with me when I say you have to find a therapist that's compatible with your, vibe, because not all therapists you would match with. So I know I went through like maybe 2 or 3 therapists before I found a good one. Do you think that happens kind of often? Is that normal?
So I ask that question a lot when I first meet a new client. I say, what is your past experience with therapists? And I get a mix of answers because there are not good therapists out there. Yes. Not even just that you don't vibe with them, but unfortunately, just like every profession, I say this too. Yes. There's bad lawyers, there's bad policemen, there's bad doctors. Yes. There's bad therapists too. They're unethical. They're doing sketchy things. Anything. They're just not there for you. They abandon you. A lot of stuff that they shouldn't be doing. But for your question, yes, I think that usually don't give up. Like I've heard you say this before in your previous podcasts. Yes, you have to find one that you feel comfortable, safe with, because you are going to get, or you should be getting, raw, emotional, vulnerable, and feel okay doing that, feeling safe doing that, feeling understood, not judged.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, it's okay if you go to a therapist and you don't get like the right feeling from that. Like, but I want to make sure that I think sometimes it can get really discouraging meeting one therapist after the next and not vibing with them very well. So just give it a try. Remember they're a person too, and it's okay to switch therapists. Right. Even in the treatment center you're at, if it's a possibility. I've had this question asked for me before, like, I would just really feel more comfortable with the male, but I'm too afraid to tell my therapist because I don't want them to be offended. Right. And I had to remind this client that no, us therapists, if you're a good one or good enough one too, you shouldn't feel offended because you just want that person to get the help where they need it. Yes. If they would get more help from that other therapist, then go to them. Great, no problem. I mean, we're humans and we don't get along with everybody, just like no one's going to get along with us. Yep. Or, I mean, not everyone is going to get along with us, and that's something that's really hard for humans to digest in general. We're humans who want to be liked. Who feels comfortable knowing someone doesn't like you. It's like, you can brush it off. You can say, okay, like, that's fine, but, we like to be liked.
Exactly.
And so it's uncomfortable. But us therapists will not get offended if you want to switch or you feel more comfortable with a different gender, a different race, more specific in their religion, whatever. So.
Awesome. Yeah. That is so awesome. So I hope you all understand how that goes. So do not feel bad if you have to switch therapists.
Or if you don't like the one that you're talking to right now, okay, you gave them a shot.
Yes. And find another one. Mm-hmm. Do not go just without one. Yeah. Everybody needs a therapist. I'm sorry. Most definitely. If you
even therapists have therapists, by the way.
That is so funny that you said that, because that was my next question. Because a lot of people do not know, and that was going to be my next question. Do therapists have a therapist?
Oh yeah, we do. We're humans too, and I think there's a lot of good programs when you're going to school for this that require you to go to therapy as a therapist, because you got to know what your clients are feeling like and going through when they are sitting in front of someone new, exposing all this stuff about them that they either maybe have never told anyone before in their whole life. So yes, we have therapists, and we probably feel some similar things as you do towards your therapist too. Wondering, this is kind of a question I was going to ask you is, I think therapists, and I think maybe even clients, have the same question. Do they like me?
Right.
Does my client like me? Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. As a client, on the client side of things,